If people see Jesus through the lens of religion, if religion hasn't been willing to step over the moral lines and love people even in the middle of brokenness, if religion has said, you measure up to my standard or I judge you, then of course, when they think of Jesus, they're going to have a clouded view of who Jesus is. But he's the guy who went over the racial lines. He went over the political lines. He went over the moral boundaries, and he said, I'm going to love everyone. The ones in the worst situations, I'm willing to go to them and give them truth about me and love them and care about them. And I'm going to seek out those people. Another example, Jesus not only loves people that society has rejected, he also loves people that even reject him. And the Apostle Paul talks about Jesus loving us while we were still sinners. And just the point there is we were doing our own thing, going our own way, we weren't turned and focused on God, and yet Jesus took us out of whatever situation we're in. He died for us. He cared about us. And an example of that, John chapter 5, it's a hot day. It's in the middle of the feast. There's tons of people in Jerusalem, and it's at a pool. So Jesus comes to the pool of Bethesda, and he chooses a man out of the crowd. There's tons of people there. Jesus chooses a man out of the crowd. He looks at him and he asks him, do you want to be healed? And I'm thinking, this man, we find out from John chapter 5, he's been crippled, certainly immobile, for 38 years. It's an entire lifetime. He's watched his children grow up, his children give grandchildren, his face has gone to wrinkles. Now he's got arthritis. He can, who knows, if he could move, he could probably barely move because he's old now. His whole life has washed away. And Jesus is there and he's asked him, do you want to be healed? And the man looks at Jesus and he says, I can't. He doesn't say, yes, I want to be healed. He says, I can't. I'm helpless. Look at all the other people here. They get in the pool first. And there was this legend about the pool at Bethesda that when the water bubbled, and it was probably some kind of spring underneath, and when the water level changed temperature, and I mean, there's scientific reasons why this probably the water got stirred up at times from changes in temperature and things. But they believed that when the water stirred up and when it bubbled up, that the first person in would be healed. That the water was stirred by some kind of angel and they would heal the first person in. And Jesus looks at him and says, do you want to be healed? And he says, well, I can't, because there's no way I could ever get in there first. All these other people get in there first. They beat me in. And Jesus says, well, stand up and walk. You're healed. Jesus heals him. Jesus cares about him. And he, regardless of how the man treats him, the man feels hopeless. He doesn't even ask for help. I think he could have looked at Jesus and said, well, could you help me get in the water? He doesn't even do that. He's just totally helpless, totally hopeless. And Jesus reaches down to him and heals him, regardless of his response. And it's a beautiful, beautiful picture of that. Jesus has to later go back and confront the man. He finds him in the temple. And from Jesus' language, he says, stop sinning. Or something even worse is going to happen. Like you had the opportunity to be healed. You had a new opportunity, a new life. And what I think is happening here, he's just gone right back into his old mode of life. His old hopelessness. Maybe his old begging. And he's doing the same old thing when Jesus has given him a new lease on life. And Jesus challenges him. And what does he do? He runs out and tells the Pharisees, remember the guy you asked me who healed me? And it's on the Sabbath, and that's a big part of the whole story. We don't have time to get into all that.
Well, that's a great thank you.
Yeah, right. He runs out and tells on Jesus. He becomes the narc. And And yeah, what a way to thank him. And so, but Jesus didn't heal him because of his faith. He healed him because Jesus cared about him. He didn't heal him because he accepted him. Jesus healed him even when he rejects him. And I think it shows a lot about Jesus' love for us. In that while we're still stuck in our mess, Jesus still loves us. And he did exactly that with that man. Jesus is willing to help him regardless of his response. And Jesus cares about us regardless of our response. He'll continue to pursue us and pursue us and pursue us. And what do you think? Are other examples that you might point to of Jesus' care for people?
Oh, yes, definitely. Feeding people, because he was hungry himself, but he fed people. When we read in the Bible, feeding of the 5,000, healing of Peter's mother-in-law, healing the woman, centurion's child, the lady who could not stop bleeding, and medical science had failed, even though touching her it will make religious uncleanness, because you would consider that person to be impure.
Awesome,
so some back and forth. Jesus always extended his mercy and grace towards people.
He did, yeah, and he wasn't in that. That's a great example. It's just continually bleeding. Well, one of the things that makes you unclean in the Jewish system is blood. So if you touch someone who's bleeding, you're now unclean. The Pharisees would never touch anybody who was hurt. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
People that were supposed to evidence the work of God in their life would say, nope, don't get near me if you're hurt. Like, you need help? Sorry, don't get near me. And Jesus says, I'll heal you. I'm not afraid of becoming religiously unclean. Because what mattered most was helping people.
He touches a man dealing with leprosy.
Yes, yeah, and that was stay away from us.
Yeah.
In fact, the leper had to go throughout the village and say, unclean, unclean, to tell everybody around them that they were a leper to stay away. And Jesus is willing to heal the leper. Yeah. It's clear that Jesus loved people and that Jesus cared about people. And we could go on and on. There's so many examples of Jesus loving people, caring for them when the society around them rejected them, when the political divide would have kept them apart, when the racism would have divided, and yet Jesus, when the religious system would have divided. And I want to look at that in another episode, really look at Jesus' interactions with religious people and just see some more about that. Because so many of the people that answered those questions said they saw Jesus through the lens of religion. So I want to look at, what did Jesus say about religious people? What did Jesus say about the religion? How did he interact with those situations? And that will give us a big picture of maybe who Jesus is himself and how far away religion has clouded the issue.
Yeah, I know we are just scratching the surface, but this starts to give us a picture of Jesus. He struggled with temptation like us. He was great yet humble. He cared about the people regardless of culture or regardless of benefit. So what are we going to look at next time?
Yeah, well, we're going to dive right in and look at Jesus' interaction with religion and get a picture there. And then we're going to go on in another episode. We're going to look at Jesus' teaching. It's another thing that come up in the questions. And I was really impressed. A lot of the people that referenced Jesus' teaching got a lot of it right. And so something's coming out and something is seen. So the true character of Jesus is timeless, and people still are impacted by it today. We're going to look at his teaching. We certainly can't cover all of it. We can only scratch the surface. So let's look at the Sermon on the Mount. It's just a great example of Jesus' teaching. And then we're going to look at his miracles. What do they say about who Jesus is? What do they say about Jesus as a person? And then wrap up with, what are the claims the Bible makes about Jesus? What do his followers claim? What does he claim? What are some of those statements that we can look at in future episodes? So
Well, definitely. Pastor Juan, I can't thank you enough, and I really appreciate you for teaching that. And
Yeah.
so, we'll see you
Thanks
next
for
time.
having me, Jackson. Thanks for hosting the podcast, and let's keep digging in and see who Jesus is.
Definitely. God bless you.